All right, welcome to the instructional video on how to calibrate your attachments. So the first thing we have is we have our attachment, and right now we don't have any servo screws in these pieces so they can come off, which is going to be helpful for us eventually. So I'm just going to take the attachment off, and what we're going to do is we're going to attach the servo attachment to the actual robot, which is pretty easy. And for today's demonstration, I'm only going to use 2 screws and 2 cap nuts, but I suggest that you use 4. First screw, and then the cap nut, and you'll obviously need your Allen key for the screw. It shouldn't take very long to screw it in. Line it up, second screw with the cap nut screwed in perfectly. Now I'm snug so that this thing doesn't come off. I also want to make sure that my wire can reach the receiver. So I'll plug my wire in to channel 3, and channel 3 is the up and down wire. So basically what I'm looking for is I'm looking for the up and down to be an up and down lever here. Some of these receivers are different. We'll get to that if it happens. Now I have to install my arm and gripper for for golf. So we're going to just plug it in. I'll have to see if this reaches, and notice how it's pretty tight. It can't reach. I'll try to go underneath and see if I can get more slack out of it. And that actually works out better, and it should be able to lift up the ball as high as it can. But if, let's say, you're having issues getting that to go high enough to get it above, getting the ball to be going high enough to go above the hole to drop it in. If you're having issues, you have a bag in your kit that has extension cords. These extension cords are pretty useful if we use them correctly. And in this case, I need an extension cord. So what I'll do is I'll plug it in and make sure that I plug it in so that we're looking at yellow to yellow, black to black, plug it in, and then that can plug into my last channel. Okay, so now when I turn on the power, this might move. And if it does, okay. But if it doesn't, I should be okay. We'll see what happens. Okay, so things already start happening. In fact, this motor wants to go down. So when I do this, it's trying to push down. So I'm not actually in a spot, but if you take a look, you can see that these wheels are able to roll because right now the motor is forcing the arm and gripper down to the ground, and so this thing isn't calibrated correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this off and let it rest, pull out the arm and gripper, turn it back on, and so this motor now moves. So if I'm moving it up and down, you can see that the motor is actually moving here. So what I want to do is now that it's there, I'm setting it at neutral position. So on my controller, I'm at neutral, and so what I'll do is I'll put this on, and I'll get it to the point where I really want this thing to be at the neutral position. So that's where I would want it to be, neutral position. So now that it's there, I haven't put the servo screw in yet. My servo screw is still right here. If I go down, it goes up. If I go up, it goes down. So that's a little adjustment in here that I'll have to do where I just have to flick the switch for channel number 3. So, but anyway, oh boy. That is furthest down. So furthest down gets it low enough to get the ball off of the ground if I need to. So that's furthest down. And the furthest up definitely will lift the ball high enough to get it into the goal. Now there's still the calibration of this that has to happen, but since this is okay, now I can install my servo screw, and I'm just going to install it very lightly with this screwdriver first. And once I get to the point where I can't install it anymore, I'll take a bigger screwdriver and install the remaining portion of the screw. So now that it doesn't slip, I'm good. And so I can move up and down. And so I'm good there. But this part is still kind of messed up. So what I want to do is while the power's on, I'm going to try to release the servo motor. And I'll turn this to the camera. I'm going to try to release the servo motor from the actual servo horn.
The screw's on.
That's okay. All right, so it's giving me a lot of power. Because it's trying to push into this, it's not allowing me to loosen it up. So what I'll do is I'll turn the power off. I'll lift it up and I'll remove it from the servo horn, which when they're new, it's a little tight sometimes, but now I'm removed and I'm just going to loosen up my servo screw on the top here. Still connected. Okay, so now I'm like just kind of hanging out there. It's the only thing that's holding it right now is the servo screw. So now that I have it in, I'm going to just turn the power back on and let it go. And so what's happening right now is the servo motor is setting up to its 0 position. And so what I want to do, I want to turn it, I want to make it at 0 position. So what I'm doing is I'm putting it at 0 position, which I'll probably put right here, and then I'll clamp it back into the servo motor. To the servo horn. And once it's in there, I'll double check. Okay, so when I go in, it goes in. When I go out, it goes out. And that should be good enough to get the ball into my attachment. So if I do this and I go down, I should be able to get the ball in there. Let me just see. And there's obviously things that we need to work on as far as the attachment's concerned, but I want to make sure that I can get this ball into my attachment, and it looks like I can. And so once I'm there, now all I need to do is make sure that I can get it above the goal, and then once I'm above the goal, I should be able to drop it into the hole to make it work. And if it does, then I'm calibrated, and now I can just go ahead and reattach the servo screw. And now our attachment is calibrated and ready to go. But before we move on, we got to make sure that there are no wires hanging down. So all of you electrical people have to make sure that all of these wires are sort of put together a little bit neater than this. And now that you're done, you can start to work out the kinks. As we can see that there are some kinks in this robot here, in the attachment I should say, that need to be fixed. But you can do that, and that's the great part about having your attachments calibrated. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Thank you.